Hey, good evening. I'm Anthony Fudge, and this is my Journal Club article assignment for British Literature 2. The article I went over is Human Image in Blake's Poetry by Elma Devac. Sorry. The reason I chose this article is because this kind of is exploring the big picture of all of Blake's poems and was looking at many other ones besides just a single one. The thesis of this article was to figure out what Blake's intentions of his poems actually were, kind of an overall big picture of what his intentions were for all of his poems. One of the quotes that I thought captured this thesis perfectly was, quote, "Blake's intention is not to speak of evil and good forces as being in a state of constant struggle. His aim is rather to speak of humans who are trying to find their purpose within the world of opposite forces." So, just for proof of the summary, there's many named poems that we're really familiar with already in class, like The Chimney Sweeper and The Little Black Boy. We both read those in class and we're really familiar with them just as a class, along with some that we actually haven't read that the article still goes over, like The Marriage of Heaven and Hell and The Little Boy Found. Both these new ones still explore kind of like the same themes and goes over the same topics, and it all connects to the big picture and the thesis of what's trying to be explained, of almost how Blake describes good and evil. Others, there's many named scholars inside this article. The ones that stood out the most, there's two that stood out the most to me. The first one being Hillis Bloom, who describes the poems further and goes into detail, wording how they connect specifically with God and how careful Blake is with his wording specifically. Another scholar is Kosham Camilli, who describes Blake as a humanist that allows him to have such a good grasp of human nature. So one example that kind of rung a bell with me, I remember when we were learning in the video about Blake, how he had the charts of how you almost start off just following orders at a very early age, because that's all you know, and you eventually build up to just thinking for yourself. So that's really what connected the dots with me with that scholar specifically. With the stuff I agree with, one point that I agreed with the article is that many of Blake's poems kind of have almost like a big picture in all of them. Like a lot of them, so specifically what me and the article agree with is different views of a common theme. So it might have different viewpoints, but they all have the same common theme. So for example, I know a lot of common themes are chimney sweepers, church, God, and how it's almost like all the same topics, but you're seeing it from a different point of view for all of them. One thing I disagreed with was almost part of the thesis of the article. So one thing that the article argues is that Blake mixes good and evil in his poems, and that they're all one part is what the article believes. But I disagree with this because after reading the poems in class, you can tell that he clearly has a dislike for churches, and he can even describes the harm of them in his poems for both the chimney sweeper. Overall, I learned a lot from the article, and I like how the author of this article used many other examples and poems and that we haven't even learned in class, but they still connected. So that was just my final thoughts. Thank you.